Morning and welcome to Mobile Device Manager Plus training program. I hope I'm audible and you're able to view the presentation. Please confirm by commenting on chat. Now that I have received a few confirmations, I will start off. This is a 2-week training program that will help you get familiar with all the capabilities that Mobile Device Manager Plus has to offer. And we are in week 1 today. I am Harshita Sharma, Product Specialist from Mobile Device Manager Plus, and I will be your trainer for today. Today, we will be dealing with device enrollment and provisioning. So let's have a quick view at the agenda for today. We will start off with the overview of Mobile Device Manager Plus. This training program has been arranged in a problem solution approach that will help us understand the features using real-time scenarios. Firstly, we will see the various techniques that are available for enrolling mobile devices. Next, we will see how to push corporate configurations to manage devices. Then, we will also be seeing how Mobile Device Manager Plus eases asset management for administrators. This will be followed by a few scenarios and their solutions. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask us in chat. We have an expert panel here who will answer them immediately. These questions will be discussed at the end of the training for the benefit of other users. Mobile Device Manager Plus allows us to manage tablets and mobile devices running on iOS, Android, and Windows operating systems. It is available as an add-on to Desktop Central, as a standalone on-premises product, as well as on cloud. So let's understand the Mobile Device Manager Plus architecture. So it consists of 3 main components: the server, the notification services, and the devices that are to be managed. Good morning and welcome to Mobile Device Manager Plus training program. I hope I'm audible and you're able to view the presentation. Please confirm by commenting on chat. Now that I have received a few confirmations, I will start off. This is a 2-week training program that will help you get familiar with all the capabilities that Mobile Device Manager Plus has to offer. And we are in week 1 today. I am Harshita Sharma, Product Specialist from Mobile Device Manager Plus, and I will be your trainer for today. Today, we will be dealing with device enrollment and provisioning. So let's have a quick view at the agenda for today. We will start off with the overview of Mobile Device Manager Plus. This training has been arranged in a problem solution approach that will help us understand the features using real-time scenarios. Firstly, we will be seeing the various techniques that are available for enrolling mobile devices. Then, we will see how to push corporate configurations to devices over the air. We will also be seeing how Mobile Device Manager Plus eases asset management for administrators. This will be followed by a few scenarios and their solutions. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask us in chat. We have an expert panel who will answer these questions immediately. These questions will be discussed at the end of training for the benefit of other users. Mobile Device Manager Plus allows us to manage tablets and mobile devices running on iOS, Android, and Windows operating systems. It is available as an add-on to Desktop Central, as a standalone on-premises product, as well as on cloud. So let's understand the Mobile Device Manager Plus architecture. It consists of 3 main components: the server, the notification services, and the devices to be managed. The server uses these notification services like APNS, GCM, and WNS to wake these devices. These devices then contact the server for tasks and information that is required. In case you do not want the server must be reachable at all times, and the devices that we are managing are mobile. And hence, we recommend you to NAT your internal IP address to a public IP address. If you do not wish to expose your server to the internet, we allow you to configure a forwarding server. This forwarding server acts as an intermediary between the server and the internet and is the one that is exposed. If you're using the cloud version of Mobile Device Manager Plus, you do not need to worry about any of these settings. So communication between the server and the devices, a few ports need to be opened. For communication between the devices and the Mobile Device Manager Plus server, the inbound port 9383 should be opened. For communication between the MDM server and the notification services, the outbound ports 2195 and 443 should be opened. Similarly, for communication between the devices and the notification services, these are the outbound ports that need to be opened. These ports need to be opened only if your devices are behind a firewall. So how do we actually manage these devices? So Mobile Device Manager Plus leverages the native MDM client present in iOS and Windows devices to manage them. Whereas in the case of Android devices, this native MDM client is not present. And hence, we download an MEMDM app into the devices that we are trying to manage. But before we can start managing these devices, we need to bring these devices under our management. That is nothing but enrolling mobile devices. So let's say my organization has a few mobile devices running on iOS and Android, which needs to be managed. So the first thing that I have to do is enroll these mobile devices. For that, the simplest way of doing that is I can use the enrollment with invites method. In this method, the IT administrator sends out an invite to the users who then accepts this invite and completes the enrollment process. Once the enrollment process is completed, the device gets registered with MDM. So let me show you how we can send these invites to our users. So log into your console using your credentials and click on the Enrollment tab. Before we can start managing these devices, we need to create an APNS certificate. As mentioned before, APNS is required for the communication between the server and the devices, and hence this is a mandatory step that needs to be performed. So under iOS, click on APNS certificate. So I already have a certificate created here, so I will be using another portal to explain the steps. So the first step that we have to do is to download a vendor-signed CSR. The second is to upload this vendor-signed CSR on the APN portal to generate the APNS certificate. Once this is done, we can download the APNS certificate and upload it on our console. Once we have completed this process, all the certificate details will appear here as we had already seen before. We recommend you to use your corporate Apple ID while creating this APNS certificate. This is done because this certificate has to be renewed every year. If we use a different Apple ID for renewal, the devices that we are managing will be unmanaged. So now that we have created the certificate, we can continue with our enrollment. So under Enroll, click on Devices. So these invites that we are sending out are dependent on the operating system of the device we are trying to enroll. So first we need to select the operating system. So under Enroll Devices, choose the required operating system. I will be showing you how this is done for iOS devices. So I will be choosing iOS as my option. So provide the name of the domain and a username. So I'm going to enroll John's device here. So I have provided John's name and his email address. So this particular device that I'm trying to enroll is owned by Tom, and hence I have chosen the option as personal. If the device is owned by the corporation, you can choose corporate as your option. Mobile Device Manager Plus has a few groups based on the operating systems and the owner of the device. So once the device gets enrolled, they fall into one of these groups. We can also customize the email that we are sending to our users. So click on Configure Enrollment Mail Template to do that. So now this is the email that the user will receive. So in case you want to add any information here, you can do that. Since I have not made any changes, I will be canceling here. So I will click on enroll to send my enrollment request. So let me show you the email that the user will receive. So this is the email that the user receives. So they will use this URL to enroll their devices. And for authentication, they will be using this OTP that is being provided. So let me show you what happens on the device next. So on the device, once you access the URL, this is the page that appears, and we need to provide the OTP for authentication. Once we have completed that, it will ask us to install an MDM profile. Once this MDM profile has been installed into the device gets successfully enrolled with MDM. So now that we have seen how to enroll our devices with invites, as an IT administrator, it is a tedious process for me to keep sending out invites every time I want to enroll a device. Is there a way with which I can enroll devices without having to send out invites? Yes, Mobile Device Manager Plus has an enrollment method known as self-enrollment. This enrollment method is left completely in the hands of the user. So in this case, the user accesses a self-enrollment portal to perform the enrollment. He uses his Active Directory credentials to authenticate this enrollment. Once the devices have been enrolled, they get registered with MDM. So let me show you what is to be done to create this self-enrollment portal. So on our console, click on self-enrollment. So we have to enable this option here. This can be done only if we have our Active Directory configured. So once we enable this option, this is the URL that has to be accessed for enrolling our devices. Now, since the enrollment is left completely in the hands of the user, it is better that the IT administrator gets notified when a new device is being enrolled. So in that case, you can enable this option, notify me when a device is enrolled through self-enrollment, and provide the IT administrator's email address. Once this is completed, as already mentioned, the device will fall into one of these groups that have already been created. So I will click Save to create my portal. So let me show you what has to be performed on the device to enroll my devices. So I will be showing it to you for Android devices. So for Android devices, when you access the enrollment portal, you will have to download the MEMDM app into the device. And then the first step is on the device is to manually enter your server details. Once you have completed this step, it will ask us to authenticate our enrollment using our Active Directory credentials. Once we have authenticated and the verification is completed, the device gets successfully enrolled with MDM. So now, my organization has purchased 50 new devices, which are both iOS and Android, and they need to be managed as well. So if I want to use any of the previously mentioned methods for enrollment, in that case, I will first have to complete the initial setup steps manually, and then complete the enrollment process using these steps. This will be a tedious process because the initial setup steps also involves a lot of manual effort. So does Mobile Device Manager Plus have any automated enrollment methods which will ease this process for me? Yes, Mobile Device Manager Plus has a few methods. Like for iOS devices, we have the Apple Configurator and Apple DP. Similarly, for Android devices, we have the DPC enrollment and the Samsung KNOX enrollment. We will be covering all of these enrollment methods, but let me start off with Apple Configurator. Apple Configurator is a tool that allows us to add device management settings to the devices, as well as reduces the initial setup steps on the devices. So this is the reason why we use Apple Configurator for enrolling our devices. So let me show you how it works. So the first thing that you have to do is to install and set up Apple Configurator on a Mac machine. Once we have completed that, the devices can be connected to the machine using a USB hub, and the settings can be applied. So once the devices have been activated, they get enrolled and registered with MDM server. So let me show you how we perform each and every of these steps. So the first thing is to set up our Apple configurator. This involves 3 steps. The first is to create a Wi-Fi profile to which the device will connect to upon activation. The second is to add the MDM server details, which will be managing the devices over the air. The third and final step is to configure the iOS setup assistant that will reduce my initial setup steps. All these settings are bundled into something that is known as a blueprint. This blueprint will then be applied onto my devices. So let's see how we can create this blueprint. So open Apple Configurator. The first thing that we have to do is click on Edit Blueprints to create a new blueprint. I have selected New, and I will be naming this as Blueprint. So once this is done, the first thing that I have to do is create my Wi-Fi profile. So on File, New Profile, choose Wi-Fi and configure it. So I am providing the name of the Wi-Fi to which I want my devices to connect to. Since I have enabled this option auto join, the device will automatically connect to this Wi-Fi when it boots up. Now I will save this as a Wi-Fi profile. Click Save. Now I can add this Wi-Fi to my blueprint. So I will choose Profiles and Add. So now that this is done, the next step is to add the MDM server details. That is known as preparing the blueprint. So I will click on Prepare, and I'll be manually configuring it. So I've chosen the option as Manual. I have chosen the server that will be managing my devices. If you want additional control over the devices, like silently installing and uninstalling apps into the devices, you can choose to supervise it. So you need to provide the name of the organization that will be managing these devices. So I'm choosing a new organization, clicking on name. So I will provide the name of my organization here and choose to generate a new supervision identity for my organization. So now this is the step where we configure our iOS setup assistant. So these are the initial setup steps that need to be performed. I will choose to not perform these steps manually on my devices. So I have chosen the option, don't show any of these steps here. So prepare. So once this is done, the blueprint is ready to be applied onto my devices. So the next step is to connect my devices to the Mac machine. So once I have connected it, the devices will appear here, and I can choose all the devices to which I want my blueprint to be added. So I'm doing that, and I'm choosing to apply this blueprint. So I will choose apply, and the blueprint will get applied to my devices. So upon device activation, let me show you what happens. So once the device is activated, this is the first step that appears. So as I had already chosen my Wi-Fi, it will automatically connect to this Wi-Fi that I had chosen. Once it connects to the Wi-Fi, it will download the configurations that need to be applied. So I will click the option Apply Configurations here. In case I choose to skip my configurations, these devices will not be managed. So once the installation is completed, as I had chosen to skip my initial setup steps, the devices will start off and will be ready to use. So my next step is to provide these devices to my employees. For doing that, I can have to assign these devices to them. So for that, we have to go back to our console. So on our console, under iOS, click on Apple Configurator. So the devices that we had added will appear here. So in case we have a large number of devices, we can choose to assign the users in bulk by creating a CSV file. So once this is done, the devices will get assigned to particular users. We can also choose this to be done on a user-to-user basis. So for that, you click on Assign Users and select the domain name. So provide the name of the employee to whom you will be assigning this device to. So I have given a name and provided the email address as well. So this will fall under the category of iOS corporate. And I have provided a name as well. So I will click on assign. So once the device gets assigned to users, it will appear on the enrollment tab here. As you can see, this device is appearing here. So now that we have seen how to automate the enrollment process for iOS devices, we have an enrollment method known as the DPC enrollment for Android devices. When we are managing Android devices, the first thing that we have to do is to add the MEMDM app into the device and then manually enter the server details. So this enrollment method allows us to automate these steps. So let's see how it works. The first thing that we have to do is enter a DPC identifier to download the MEMDM app. The next step is to scan a QR code with all the server details. Once this is done, the device gets enrolled and registered with MDM. So these steps need to be performed on the devices that we are trying to enroll. So let me show you how it is performed. So the first thing is when the device is activated, it will ask us to enter our Google account details. So instead of entering our Google account details, we will enter the DPC identifier titled as AFW #MEMDM. Once this is done, it will contact the Google Play Store and download the MEMDM app into the device. Once that is done, this is the app that will appear, and we will have to click on Scan QR code to scan the QR code that is available on the server. So let me show you where it is available. So on our server, click on the QR code enrollment. So under steps to enroll, this is the QR code that needs to be scanned. This contains all the server details that is required on the device that we are trying to manage. So once this is done, the device gets enrolled with MDM. We can continue with the user assignment process the same way as we had done for Apple Configurator. So now my organization is growing and has purchased 500 new devices. This is a large number of devices that needs to be enrolled, and the previously mentioned steps also involve some manual steps to be performed by the IT administrator. So is there a way with which I can automate this enrollment process? So Mobile Device Manager Plus has two methods for that, but there are a few prerequisites that need to be met. So the first thing is we need to create an account with Apple or Samsung. The next is to purchase these devices from authorized resellers. Only if these prerequisites are met can we enroll the devices using these two methods. So we will start off with how to automatically enroll iOS devices. So for that, we have the Apple Device Enrollment Program, or the Apple DEP method. In this case, the first thing that we have to do is to integrate our MDM server with the DEP portal. The next is to add our devices into the DEP portal. So basically, the DEP portal and our MDM server have already been integrated. So this essentially means that we are adding our devices into the MDM server itself. So once these steps are performed, the next step is to activate the devices. So when the device gets activated, it will contact the DEP portal for the server details. So this DEP portal will provide these server details to the devices, and it will get registered with MDM. So the devices can be activated either by the administrator or by the user himself. So let's see how we perform this enrollment method. So for that, we need to, on our console, we need to download an MDM public key. So this public key will ensure that we securely connect to the DEP portal. So log into the DEP portal and click on Add MDM Server. So here, first we need to provide the MDM server's name. So once we have done that, I have enabled this option, automatically assign new devices. So what this option does is that any new devices that I purchase henceforth will automatically get added into the particular server that I'm creating now. So this automates the addition of devices into my server step. So I click next. Now I have uploaded the public key that I had downloaded on my console. So I click next. This generates a server token that has to be uploaded back onto our console. So when I click done, on my console, I have uploaded this token, and I have also provided my IT administrator's email address to be notified when the DEP token expires. So I click upload. So now, these are a few settings that need to be performed on the device during activation. So in case I want the device to get enrolled upon activation itself, I will choose this option, force install MDM during device setup. I can exercise additional control over devices by supervising it. Now that we are managing these devices, we need to ensure that the users cannot remove these devices from our management. For that, we recommend you to enable this option, restrict users from removing MDM. These are the initial setup steps that need to be performed. So if we can choose to skip these steps also. So I have clicked create, and the devices will appear in this tab once they have been enrolled. So now, for adding these devices, we have three ways of doing that. We can either use the serial number, the order number of the purchase, or we can upload a CSV file. These are the devices that I have already purchased from my authorized reseller before creating these server. So I will have to manually add them. So I will be choosing the serial number option, and I have entered the serial number of my device, and I'm choosing to assign it to the server that I had just created. So I click OK, and the device has been enrolled successfully into my MDM. So now when the device gets activated, it will automatically apply the configurations that were already decided by our DP server. So once that is done, the device will be ready to use as we had chosen to skip the initial setup steps. So now let me show you how it appears on the console. So on our console, when we click on Apple DEP, the device will be available here. We can choose to assign users as we had done in the case of Apple Configurator, or we can choose to automate this process as well. So for that, go to settings and enable this option, authenticate and auto assign users on device activation. So what this does is it allows the user to use his Active Directory credentials to assign the devices to himself. Now that this is done, we have completed the enrollment using DEP. So for Samsung devices, we have a similar method known as the Samsung KNOX enrollment. So the steps that need to be performed are very similar to what we did in DEP. So the first thing that we have to do is to set up the KNOX portal. The second is to add the devices to the KNOX portal. The third and final step is to assign the MDM profile on the devices. Once the admin performs all these steps, the next thing is to activate the device. So once the device is activated, it will contact the KNOX server and get all the MDM server details. So this step can be either performed by the administrator or the user himself. Once it is completed, the device gets registered with MDM. So let me show you how we perform these steps. So log into your Samsung KNOX portal, and the first thing that we have to do is to create our MDM profile. So I will click on MDM profile and choose to add a new profile. So click on add. Select the option server URI not required for my MDM and click on next. So these are the few details that need to be provided on the KNOX portal. So the first thing is the APK URL. This is nothing but the MEMDM app details. So when we activate the device, the KNOX portal will automatically add this app into my device. And this is the MDM profile details. This is all the server details that need to be provided to my device. So now we need to enter this in the KNOX portal. So I have provided the profile name here, and I have given the APK over here. So I will click save and provide my profile details here. So when I click save, this new profile will get created. So it is titled as Wilker MDM. So the next step is to add my devices. So for that, I need to add my reseller details. So I will click on reseller. Here, I will provide the reseller ID from whom I have purchased these devices. Once that I have done that, I will click on add and add the reseller. So now the next step is to add the devices that I have already purchased from these resellers before adding the reseller details. So I will choose to submit new devices here. I have created a CSV file and I will be uploading that. So I'm clicking on select. Now I have provided the reseller details here and the profile to which I want this device to be added to. So now I have clicked submit. Samsung will verify if these devices were actually purchased from resellers, and once the verification is completed, the device can be enrolled using our MDM. So now let me show you what happens upon device activation. Once the device is activated, we first need to select the Wi-Fi to which the device will connect to. The next step is to agree to all the terms and conditions. Once that is done, it will contact the KNOX portal and get any updates from that. Once the KNOX portal informs the device with all the details, it will authenticate this enrollment and then download all the server details. Once this is done, we have to click on continue to enroll the device with our organization. So once the enrollment is completed, the device gets successfully added to the MDM server. So we can continue with the user assignment process as the same way we did for Apple Configurator. So now we have seen all the methods that are available for enrolling our devices. So the next step is to make these devices ready for access to corporate data. So Mobile Device Manager Plus allows us to push configurations in the form of profiles to these devices over the air. So let me show you how that is done. So on our console, click on Device Management. So now I will be creating a passcode profile. This will have the details of the passcode that I want the user to set. So these profiles that we are creating now are dependent on the operating system of the device we are trying to add it to. So I will choose it to be an iOS profile and provide the name of this profile as passcode. Click on continue. Here, now I will make a few changes in these settings here. So now I have clicked to not allow simple values. The next step is I do not want alphanumeric values. So if that is the case, I've chosen to keep it as no. Now I will set the minimum passcode length as 4. In this case, I will click save. So now this profile is ready to be applied to my devices. So I will publish it. So now what happens is that these profiles need to be applied on my devices. So it is recommended that we apply it to one device and check if it is fine for me to apply it to all my devices. So I will click on groups and devices and choose the device to which I want it to be applied to. I will choose Stefan's iPad here and click on associate profile. This is the profile that I had just created and I will click select. So if I want to see the status of what is happening on the device, I can click on the device name. And as you can see, this says the notification has been sent to the APN portal to apply this profile. In case this profile is successfully applied, the execution status will change to succeeded. If it fails for any reason, it will show the execution status as failed. So now I feel that this passcode policy is not stringent enough for my organization. So I can choose to go and modify it. So for doing that, I will go back to Profiles and select the profile and choose to modify it. Continue. Yes. So now here I want to change the minimum passcode length to say 8 here. So now once that is done, I will click save and publish this profile to be applied to my devices. So I will apply it to that one device that I had already applied it to. So I will click on devices and choose the device name. So here, as you can see, there are two columns, one which talks about the executed version and one gives the details about the latest version. So executed version is the version of the profile that is available on the device, whereas the latest version is the one that is available on the server. So as you can see, these two do not match, and hence this means that this policy has to be upgraded on my device. So this button here is for upgrading profile. So I have selected the profile here, and this will be upgraded. Now that it has been upgraded, you can see that both the versions match. So now what is to be done is this profile is ready to be applied on all my devices. So I can go back to devices. Since I have all the platform devices available here, I will choose only my iOS devices. So for that, I will go to devices and under platform type, click on iOS. So these are all the iOS devices available in my network. So I will choose all of them and click on associate profile. The passcode was the profile that I had created and I have chosen to select it. So what actually happens in the device when this profile is being applied? So let me show you what happens. So when the profile has been applied, the user will get a notification to change his passcode to fall into category with the ones that we have applied. So this happens only for the passcode policy, since a passcode is very user specific and he is the one who will be choosing it. So if the passcode that the user set matches the criteria, this notification will disappear. For other profiles, these profiles will automatically get applied to my devices. So passcode is not the only policy that we can apply. So there are certain policies that need to be applied only to specific devices in my organization. So in that case, I can create a group with all these devices. So let's say I have an iOS group which has all my temporary employees. So I have created temporary employees as my group, and I will add my devices to it. So these are the two employees who are temporary, and I have a certain different set of profiles that I want to apply on them. So now I will click on create group to apply this. So now any profile that I apply to this group will automatically get added to the devices. So passcode, as I said, passcode is not the only policy available. So let me show you what other policies are available. So click on profiles, and I will be showing you another iOS profile itself. So I will modify this and show it to you. So for a device to get access to corporate data, it requires Wi-Fi connection. So here you can provide all the details of the Wi-Fi to which you want your device to connect to. If you enable this option, automatically join network, this will ensure that the device will automatically connect to the Wi-Fi that you had chosen. So next, most of the conversation in a corporation happens over email. So for that, we need to have an email configured on the device. So here, you may wonder that an email address is very specific to user. So does that mean that I have to create a profile for every user whose device I'm trying to add this to? That is not the case. Mobile Device Manager Plus makes use of dynamic variables. So these dynamic variables fetch the appropriate information from the devices these profiles have been applied to. So this means that one profile can fit all the devices in my organization. So let's say my organization allows users to work from home, but they will still need access to my corporate data, and I need to ensure that this is provided to them safely. So for that, you can configure the VPN settings here. So provide the details for the VPN that you are trying to establish. We also have an option to enable VPN on demand. What happens here is that when you provide the specific domains, and every time a device tries to connect to this domain, a VPN is automatically established. So once you have made all the changes, you can publish this profile. So these profiles also can be applied to the devices the same way as I had applied my passcode policy. So now the next thing that we have to see is how Mobile Device Manager Plus eases asset management. So every organization needs to keep a track of the devices that are available in their network. So for that reason, we need to have these details available with the IT administrator at one point. So that is, these devices detail will be available on the server. So let me show you where it is available. So on our server, click on the Inventory tab. So these are all the devices details that are available. So if you want more device details, click on the device name here. So these details are made available immediately when the device gets enrolled. So when the device is enrolled, the server will scan these devices and obtain all this information. So we have information about the device's hardware and network, about the apps that are installed in these devices, as well as the certificates associated with it. We also have information about the restrictions that we have applied on these devices. Geo-tracking is nothing but keeping a track of the device's location, and we will be dealing with this in detail in our next session. So now, if you have made any changes to the devices, and if you want to see if they have been applied, you can choose to manually scan the device. So click on Scan Devices and choose the device that you want to scan. So choose the device and click on Scan. Here, you can see the status of the scan. So once it is succeeded, it will change to succeeded, and you can have a graphical view here. So does this mean that every time I want to scan a device and check, I will have to manually come back to my console and do it? That is not how it works. So we have an option where you can scan the devices on a scheduled basis. So for that, you click on Schedule Device Scan. So here, when you enable it, you can choose to scan these devices in your network on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So I will choose to do it on a weekly basis, and at say 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday. So once this is done, I will save my changes. So every Monday morning, it will get scanned, and it will update all the device details that are available. So now these are all the general details that are available on my device. So what if I want very specific details about the devices available in my network? For that, Mobile Device Manager Plus has a few reports. So click on Reports option. Here, the reports are listed. We have reports on the apps installed in the devices, the hardware details, and also reports on the enrollment and security. So let me show you what is available in these reports. So I will choose inactive devices as my report. So as you can see, these are the devices that haven't contacted my server in over a month. So these have been listed as inactive devices. So I can choose to find out the devices that have been not in contact with my server in say 2 weeks. So these are the same devices. I can also choose to customize my duration as well. So let's say I want to see all the devices that I have not contacted my server in 2 months. So say February 15th to today. So I have generated the report. So these are all the devices that haven't contacted my server in the past 2 months. So now, in case I want information on a regular basis, I can choose to schedule these reports. So click on Schedule Reports and Add Scheduled Reports. So now I have to generate a report with the new devices that appear on my, the new apps that are detected on my devices. So I will name it as a new app and choose the report New App Detected. So now I can choose to get this report in 3 formats, either as a PDF, as an or a CSV. So how do you want to receive this report? Either you want it to be as an attachment or as a zipped file. We can also send the reports on the MDM server and send you the URL. So provide the users who will receive this email. So my IT administrator will receive this report. So I have provided his details and provided the new app as my report as my subject. So now, how many times do we want to receive this report? For that, we need to configure this scheduler by specifying the frequency. So I want this to happen on a weekly basis, say at 4 p.m. on Wednesdays. So now that I have scheduled it, it will occur on Wednesday, 4 p.m. So now I will click to save it, and this scheduler has been created. So next Wednesday at 4 p.m., you will receive a report on your email address. So what if these reports do not cover the information that I require? In that case, you can raise a query to the MDM tech team who will provide you the reports. So for that, click on Custom Reports and create a new query. So click on New Query Report. First, we need to request for a query. So click on Request for Query and provide all the details. Say which database you're using or what you want in the report should be provided here. So once this is generated, they will provide you with a query which has to be added here, and the report's name has to be provided. So you can choose to run this report and obtain the details. In case you want to save it for later use, you can choose to run and save this report. So this is how Mobile Device Manager Plus makes asset management easy for administrators. In case you have any questions, please feel free to post it in chat. The next thing we will be discussing are the scenarios and their solutions. So my first scenario is my organization uses Windows devices. How can I enroll these devices in bulk without user interaction? So for Windows devices, we have the Windows ICD method of enrollment. So click on Enrollment. In this method, what we do is we create a PPKG for the devices. So first, we need to install Windows ICD on a Windows machine and create the PPKG. Once it is created, we can apply it on the device using a USB. This method is very similar to the Apple Configurator method that we had seen. So my next is, an employee is moved from one department to another. The old profiles and restrictions should be removed, and the new ones pertaining to the department must be added. How can this be done over the air? This might seem to be a very tedious process to be performed, but that is not the case. So Mobile Device Manager Plus makes it very easy. So all you have to do is shift the device from one group to another to apply those restrictions. So let me show you how it is done. So click on Device Management and say, I have somebody from my sales team moving to my marketing team. So for that, I will remove the device from the sales team. Once I remove it, all the profiles that have been applied will automatically get removed. Sorry. Yeah. So now I'm moving him to my marketing department. So I will choose his thing and click select. So now I have added him into my marketing department, and all the profiles that I have applied to this will automatically get added to the device he is using. So my next scenario is how to check if an iOS device is supervised or not. So this device detail is available directly in our inventory. So click on inventory. If it is not directly visible here, you can make it visible by clicking on column chooser. Here you have the different details available. So enable this option is supervised and click on save. So once this is done, the device details will appear here. So my next scenario is does the admin get notified when a device becomes unmanaged? So yes, the administrator has to get notified when a device is being unmanaged. So for that, we have to go on enrollment and perform a few settings. So click on enrollment settings and enable this option, notify when the device becomes unmanaged. So when I do that and provide my IT administrator's email address, he will get notified every time a device becomes unmanaged. So the next is, I don't want users to be able to remove devices from our management. How can I do that? So now we have seen when we get notified, but I don't want them to remove it at all. So for that, I need to perform a few settings again. So these settings are dependent on the operating system. So I will show you how it is performed for every operating system. So for Android devices, we need to click on the MEMDM app option. And this option allow users to remove MEMDM app should be set to no. So once we do that and save it, the users will not be able to remove the app from the device and hence ensure that the device is always managed. Similarly, for Windows also, go to Settings and click No on this option. Allow users to delete MDM workspace account and click Save Changes. So once this is done, the Windows devices also will not go unmanaged. But if we want to do this for iOS devices, we need to enroll these devices using either DEP or Apple Configurator. So now we have discussed all the scenarios. So we will be discussing the questions that have been asked during this training program. So give me a second for me to update this questions that have been asked. So yes, this is done. So now the first question that we have is, we use Exchange Online. Does Mobile Device Manager Plus support it? Yes, we do support Exchange Online, and there are a few profiles that can be applied for Exchange Online. So for that, we go to Device Management, and let me show you the profile that is available. So click on Profile and iOS Profile. So Profile Details and Modify. So as you can see here, we have a profile for Exchange Active Sync. So here you have two options. Either you can use the Exchange on-premises or you can use Exchange Online as your Exchange host type. So since we support both, you can make use of whichever is available in your organization. So the next question is, what are the other methods of authentication that Mobile Device Manager Plus supports? So there, as we have already discussed, there is an authentication method as OTP, and there is another one using Active Directory credentials. So let me show you how you can choose the one that you want. So on our console, go to Enrollment and click on Enrollment Settings. So as you can see, you have enabled this option using an OTP. So if we choose this option, Active Directory Authentication, the organization can make use of the employee's Active Directory credentials to perform the authentication. For more security, we can choose to use a combination of these two authentication methods, where first the user will have to enter his Active Directory credentials and then enter the OTP that they will receive on the email. So click on Save to save your settings. So my next question, is it possible to apply a profile created for one platform to devices running on other platforms? No, that is not possible, since these profiles deal with particular device functionality. So it has to be created for the particular operating system we want it to be applied to. So the next question is, I want to apply different policies as separate profiles. Is it possible to apply multiple profiles to devices? Yes, it is possible to do that, and I'll show you how you can do that. So go to Device Management, and on Devices, choose a device and click on Associate Profile. So since I have only one profile available here, I will show you the associated profile. As you can see, there are 3 profiles that have been associated to this particular device. So we also recommend you to create all the account related settings in one profile and apply it on the devices, and the restrictions that are to be applied as a separate profile. My next question is, what will happen if I apply 2 profiles with contradictory restrictions? In that case, Mobile Device Manager Plus will choose the one that is more secure for the device. So let's say you have applied 2 profiles one which has the minimum passcode length as 4 and one which has it as 8. So the passcode that the user has to set should have a minimum length as 8 in this case. So this brings me to the end of the training program. I hope it has been beneficial to you. We request you will receive a survey at the end of this training. We request you to rate us on a scale of 1 to 5 and provide any inputs that will help us in improving it. We will also request you to spread a word about our training programs across social media platforms. Our next training is scheduled on May 3rd, 2017, which will cover app deployment and device security. We hope you will make time for it as well. Thank you for taking time out and attending this training program. Hope to see you again next week.